In this how-to session, I want to talk about infrastructure, but more importantly, I want to talk about the most important, the essential ingredient that you need in infrastructure that is going to grow property prices, not only for the short term, but for the long sustainable term. Now you might be thinking, that's an easy one. Surely it's got to be transportation, and surely it's got to be mass transportation. So we're talking about trains, buses, trams, those types of things. You're wrong. What if you're talking about, well, maybe it's road infrastructure, big arterial roads that get people moving en masse into those locations. Again, important, but not the essential building block. So maybe it's education and housing and those types of things. Well, those things come later on. In fact, other than the fundamentals of land and fresh water, the most important infrastructure is not even government infrastructure. It's everything around that. It's jobs infrastructure. So think about it logically like this. When we bring a population together, we are normally bringing them into an area where there is good job infrastructure. Now, job infrastructure is going to be things like commercial buildings. And then when you get the commercial buildings and you move people there, you then get retail buildings. Now we also have to do commerce in that area. So you're going to have banking in terms of an essential service in that area. Now you're also going to have logistics, movement of goods. So you're going to have ports and that type of infrastructure. Now when you bring all those together, what you're doing is creating a city infrastructure. An infrastructure that is complete jobs infrastructure. Now if you think about it logically, if I have that infrastructure there as a business, I'm looking to potentially set up. If I don't have that infrastructure there, it might be more cost effective for me to grow my business in an area where the infrastructure is already in place, as opposed to having the expense of building that infrastructure in a new location. So jobs infrastructure is absolutely critical when it comes to basically the foundation building blocks. Now, why is that the case? Well, think about it logically. I mean, if I didn't have that jobs infrastructure, then technically I'd have less job opportunities. So if there's no jobs, what do? I have to move. I mean, I need money, I need income. If I don't have that income, I can't borrow money and I can't buy houses. Now, all of the other infrastructure that we talked about in terms of mass transport, education, social amenity, lifestyle amenity, they come later. They come after the jobs are created in that location. So the fundamental piece of infrastructure, the building block that you need to be able to build out, that demand level, because remember, property prices are driven by incomes, people's ability to borrow money, sustain their employment, and push demand up for housing in that area, and that grows property prices. So the number one building block is actually jobs infrastructure. Everything else, in terms of all the building blocks of society, come from that. Transportation, housing, shelter, all of those other pieces, education, services, everything, health, the whole lot comes from that jobs infrastructure. You don't have the jobs there, you don't have the population there, you don't have pressure on property prices. So if you like this, make a comment below, or if you disagree, I'd also love to hear from you.